Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. Today I'm going to share with you why school is not an option for my homeschooled kids. And I know that this subject is a touchy area for some people, but I'm going to broach the subject because it's something that I get a lot of questions about, and it's something that I just see coming up very often. Now, first of all, I just want to point out that I did at one point send my kids back to school. After our first 2 years of homeschooling, my oldest son asked if he could go back to school because I was a terrible homeschool mom. I was way too strict and I was trying too hard to bring school home with us, literally. So finally, after 2 years, my oldest son asked if he could go back to school. I was burned out, so I said yes, and I sent my kids along with him, my other kids. So it's something that I have definitely been through already. And now that my kids are homeschooling again, and we have been homeschooling straight through now, I think now for 7 or 8 years, I'm now at the point where it is not an option. School is not an option for my kids, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, a while back, I did write a post on my blog about this, and I actually had 7 reasons why school is not an option for my homeschooled kids. But I'm actually going to just condense that into 3 for today. If you actually want to see all 7, I will leave the link in the description box below. But I'm really just going to break it down to the 3 what I think are the most important reasons of why my kids will not go to school even if they ask, which so far they haven't. So, first of all, the very first reason and the most important reason why school is not an option is because I know what school is like and I know what the true intentions are. So I know what school is like from when my kids were in school, and I know the true intentions from all of the reading and research that I have been doing on the subject of compulsory schooling. And it's not really something that most people think to look into, but I was actually blessed enough to find, I should say, John Holt and John Taylor Gatto, and that was really how I got interested in the history of compulsory schooling. Because as someone who really did enjoy school myself, I never really would have thought that the origins behind it were pretty insidious, but they are. And that's the truth of it. So to be honest with you, I am not willing to let my kids become guinea pigs of the state, because that is what school is. It is a gigantic social engineering project. They want people to no longer think as individuals. They want everyone to think as a unit. And if you look at it, if you look at the world today, while there are some people who will break out and will think differently, for the most part, it's true. Everyone seems to be thinking about certain subjects as a mass unit. And that's really what they want. And that is not what I want for my kids. God gave my children intelligence. He gave them creativity. And I want them to be able to use that to their benefit and for His glory. And it is not going to happen if they are being transformed into automatons through a factory school setting. And I was actually reading Weapons of Mass Instruction today again by John Taylor Gatto. And I just want to read this actually 2 quotes that I came across today because it really sums it up. Now, John Taylor Gatto, if you don't know who he is, he was a public school teacher, and he actually won Teacher of the Year award multiple times for New York City and New York State. So he isn't someone who has, no background in education and really doesn't know what he's talking about. He does know what he's talking about. And I'm going to just read to you 2 quotes about what he says, and I'm hoping that you'll see the light. School had to train in consumption habits, listening to others, moving on a bell or horn signal without questioning, becoming impressionable, more accurately, gullible, in order to do well on tests. Kids who insisted on producing their own lives had to be humiliated publicly as a warning to others. Now think about that. Think about your history with public school, if you were in school. Not even just public school. The same thing happens in a lot of private schools. They're still based off of the same foundation of compulsory schooling. And Yes, think about those kids who always seem to be getting trouble in class. They were the kids who spoke out. They were the kids who asked too many questions. They were the kids who marched to the beat of their own drummer. They were the kids who, and now as an adult, I realize were having difficulty because they were square pegs being fit into round holes. It wasn't working for them. And so what ended up happening? They would be ridiculed, both by the students and by the teachers. Now, I remember even in fourth grade, there was a boy in my class who always acted up. Now, my fourth grade teacher, he was really, really nice. He was a Sunday school teacher. He was a really nice man. But I remember, and I will never forget this, he actually brought a pacifier into school the one time to give to this boy who was always acting up. And it was a way to humiliate him into listening. And that is what happens, and it even happens in the adult world today. So think about that. Anytime there's a group of people who thinks differently from societal norms, anybody who thinks about certain subject areas in a way that most people just accept because authorities told them that it was so, they're ridiculed. They are treated as if they're less intelligent, and people look down on them. And this all starts in the public school setting, and I am not going to subject my kids to that. Now, another quote that I wanted to read to you is, I urge you to examine in your own mind the assumptions which must lay behind using the police power to insist that once sovereign spirits have no choice but to submit to being schooled by strangers. And that's another part of this. My kids are my kids. It is my responsibility to educate them. It is not the government's responsibility. Sure, they might want to do it. They might try to take that, but it is not. They are my children. God gave these children to me to raise them. He gave them to me to equip them. And to be honest, I don't trust the government to educate my kids because it's not about academics. It's about training them to be obedient citizens. It's about training them to fit the worldview that they want everyone to fit because they're easier to manipulate. So again, not something that I want my kids subjected to, like with Common Core. Utterly ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous, and Common Core to me is really about teaching these kids confusion. When you say that there is no right or wrong answer to some math problems, I mean, you just can't get more ridiculous than that, because there are some aspects of learning that, yes, there are some gray areas, but there are some that are not gray areas. This is one of them. And the whole Common Core thing, the theme, it goes through everything, and it even goes into their standardized tests. So that's another way that I honestly believe they're holding these kids back. These kids would learn so much better if they weren't in school. That's my honest belief. And I know that a lot of people aren't going to like that I say that, but it's the truth. So that is my first very long-winded reason why my kids don't have an option of going to school. So my second reason is safety. School violence is terrible. And it's getting worse and worse by the day. And so you have bullying. You have inappropriate student-teacher relationships, which for some reason really seem to be swept under the rug. You know, when we had that family in California who was abusing their 13 children and was they were like using the guise of homeschooling, everybody just jumped on homeschooling. But you see everywhere these teachers taking off with their students and like taking them to other states and stuff and having inappropriate relationships. And you don't hear anything about how schools should have additional regulations about this sort of thing, or investigations, or how people need to keep a closer eye on them. And it's really a double standard. So you have that going on. You can't even trust the teachers with your children. You also have assaults on kids at school. You have school shootings. And a lot of people, well, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know what? We live in a really good school district. And I hate to say it, but a lot of these issues are happening in these really good schools that people would never expect them to happen in. So these things can happen anywhere. And to be quite honest with you, even though the odds are that your child will be fine at school, I'm not willing to take that chance with my kids. Absolutely not. So the third reason that my kids have no choice about being homeschooled is because of socialization. And yeah, that's that question that people always say, oh, you homeschool, but what about socialization? Guess what? One of the reasons that we homeschool is because of socialization. I have seen how kids behave today. Not all of them. There are some great kids in school. There are some great kids in our neighborhood. But the fact of the matter is that when you send your child off to school each and every day, to be just with basically strangers who are their authority figures, you are not going to be there to be supervising who it is that they're spending their time with while they are at school. And now I've told this story in some of my other videos about when she's 16 now. When she was in first grade, she was in public school. There was a boy in her class every day. He would beat up the teacher. He would knock all the books over. The one time he threw a desk and hit my daughter on the leg with it. He had the school on lockdown at least once a week. And this is a first grader, or it might have been second grade, but regardless of whether it was first or second grade, this was going on constantly. My daughter used to come home sick to her stomach with worry over her teacher because of her classmate. So no child should have to go through that. I also know people from church who would tell me, I actually mentioned at one point that my oldest son was thinking about a biology teacher, about becoming a biology teacher, and she said to me, tell him not to do it. She said teaching is not what he thinks it is. And she would go on to tell me about how the kids were so completely out of control that she used to have, like, she would shut her classroom door, but she was right next to the office, and you could hear through the wall. There would be little, again, first and second graders in the office because they got in trouble for something, screaming profanities, and she would be hearing them through her class. And she just told me, she said, don't tell him not to do it. And so more recently, we were just at the eye doctor over the weekend, and I mentioned, and we had never had this eye doctor before because we were there on a Sunday, and the one that we usually see is there during the week. And he asked about the kids with school, and I said that they were homeschooled, and I'm used to having some questions, the cliche questions that they ask, and so I was preparing myself for it, but I was actually surprised because what he actually said to me was, I think you made a really wise decision in homeschooling your kids. And I was shocked because that's not something that I hear very often. But he went on to tell me that his wife is a teacher's assistant. And it has gotten so bad at their school that they can no longer do field trips because they cannot control the students. So, yeah, socialization, not an issue in our house. My kids do have friends. They have neighbors that they play with outside. I am here to supervise that. I know their parents. I know what kind of kids they are. And so, to me, socialization was never even something that I considered when I decided to homeschool them. Because how many times do kids here in school, stop talking, you're not here to socialize? But the first thing that people say to you when you tell them that you homeschool is, but what about socialization? School's not about socialization. It's about training your kids to think the way the government wants them to. And again, I know that people aren't going to like to hear this, but that is my honest opinion. And actually, I know I said that I was only going to give 3. And I'm going to give a 4th one really quickly. I truly believe that as a Christian, it is my responsibility to bring my kids up in the Lord. They will not get that in a secular school. Their morals that they teach there are completely contrary to those of what we are instructed to do with our children. Train up a child in the way they should go. And how can you do that if your kids are in school many times for more hours than they're at home. And I know there are a lot of kids who seem to do okay with it, but there are even more Christian kids who don't do okay with it. And I think that a lot of times people put their kids in public schools kind of as a mission field to bring kids to the Lord. But I'm not confident that my kids are mature enough yet to face that responsibility, first of all. Second of all, because my son's like waving to me. I don't know what he wants. But anyway, second of all, now you made me lose my train of thought, Bailey. He made me forget. Anyway, yeah, they're just not ready. And so, yeah, I'm not going to do that with my children. My children need to be equipped. I want to raise them up in the faith. But at the same time, I am not going to risk having them lose their faith because of things that they're being taught in school. Because kids look up to their teachers. A lot of times their teachers are their heroes. And that's awesome because there are a lot of great teachers out there. But a lot of those great teachers are not actually able to teach the things that they want to. I actually have this in my church. There's someone in my church who teaches biology. And do you think he's able to teach creation? No. He has to teach what the schools put in front of him. So I truly believe that Christian kids need a Christian education. And I'm not going to apologize for that. And I know that, again, a lot of people aren't going to like that. But if you look back on it, I don't think that the followers of Jesus would have sent their kids into the pagan temples. And that's basically what our schools are. They are the equivalent of pagan temples. And I will not send my kids there. So this was a bit of a more serious video today, but it's brought up a lot. And I just wanted to just share with everyone why, even if my kids ask, no, they're not going to go to school. So if you have any questions, leave one in the comment section below. As I said earlier, it might take me a few days to get back to you, but I will get back to you. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and you would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that, and I hope you have a good day.